Welcome back to the Nourished and Free podcast, where we like to talk about things like your relationship with food and your relationship with your body, these things that people typically don't like to talk about. And I'm joined today by one of my lovely clients, Lindsey, who just finished her time in my 4-month signature program, also named Nourished and Free. And we had the best time working together. And she is so awesome for coming on. And I'm excited for you to get to know Lindsey because she, I think, is so relatable in so many ways. So, Lindsey, why don't you share with us just a little bit about you, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, and kind of fill us in on who you are?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk to
Mm,
your audience because I love this program and I'm so sad it's over, but the
I
thinking
know.
and the education is still there. And that's the most important
That's
thing.
what's key. That is
That's what's
key.
key. So, my story is an interesting one. For me personally, right prior to the pandemic, I had decided, okay, I'm going to get on Weight Watchers, like many of us do.
Yeah.
And I'm on Weight Watchers and I lose a boatload of weight. I look the best I've ever looked. Everybody says, oh my gosh, you look so great, all the things. I love it. I'm like, everybody compliment me. I've worked so
Mm.
hard, but I starved myself. I was so hungry, like two hard-boiled eggs and a snack of red peppers, like that was it until lunch. And I was just like, oh my goodness. The pandemic hits like it did, and I unfortunately put all that weight back on and a little bit more.
Wait, pandemic? Was there a pandemic? I
Yeah,
don't, was
just a
I?
little one. Just a little one. And I was just so over it. And I was like, I don't know when I'm going to see anybody. So I ate all the things and all of
Yeah.
the tools that I thought that's what they were at the time were gone. I was like, I can't have another hard boiled eggs. I really don't want Melba toast with salsa. Like 0 points. It was exhausting. I just wanted, and so I didn't have any control genuinely of understanding what to eat because I was so confused. And I don't know if I'd go as far to say it was an eating disorder, to be completely frank, but I certainly did not have a good relationship with food.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we come out of the pandemic, and I've shared this with Michelle before, but I am turning a cute for 40 in November. And it is daunting going into a new decade. And with a new decade, you start thinking about, your health, most importantly. If I ever have children, will I be able to? All of these factors kind of go in your head. And every time I'd be like, okay, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. Monday would come, I'd starve myself in some fashion because I only knew the Weight Watchers way, and by Tuesday I've ordered a pizza for dinner. And then I have it for leftovers on Wednesday, and so on and so forth. It just became exhausting. That routine went on
Sure.
for
Yeah.
years, and I put on more weight and I felt incredibly unhappy. So that's kind of my story, of why I stood up for nourishment free, and how I found it was really interesting because so my job, I'm a digital marketing director, and I spend a lot of time on the internet. And rolls Michelle at the perfect time because
Mm.
I think I wrote you on a Sunday, and I was so sad the night before. I was with a friend and I was like crying. I was like, I can't get it. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to do this. And your reel showed up, and it felt like fate. And it was one of those things, like it was, I don't even know, but I remember you pointing to a bunch of things and I was like, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. Um, and I contacted you, and the rest is history.
The rest is
Um,
history.
the rest is history. So that's how it kind of got started.
Kudos to you for taking that step too, because I can imagine this wasn't a fun thing to
No.
reach out about.
No, it
Yeah.
wasn't. And on top of that, I neglected to mention that, of course, when you gain a lot of weight, my doctor was slightly concerned. So we run a
Mm.
bunch of tests, so on and so forth. And the reality is, it just was a crappy time, and I ate crappy food. Those are the facts. But she had said you have to lose 30 pounds, and then we'll talk about, because I was reaching a place where like diabetes was becoming a conversation, and we needed to, I needed to get right with food. Period.
Yeah. So that's interesting because what you were doing before with Weight Watchers was, I mean, you were trying to lose the weight. That was
Mm-hmm.
the intent of it,
Yes,
right? It's
of
called
course.
Weight Watchers. We're watching
Yeah.
our weight, but you instead found that your weight continued to progressively go up,
Yeah.
correct?
I had no control when I didn't have the points. I didn't know how to
Mm-hmm.
just eat food. I didn't know how to have just a cake. A piece of cake was 26 points. Like the points will forever be in my system.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like cake with icing, 26 points. At the top of it, I had 23 points a day. So my whole
Mm.
intake was that cake. So I would have like
Brutal.
eggs, and then I'd have like a salad because those were both 0 points. And then I know I'd have the cake. And it was just, what kind of life is that? Right.
That's terrible.
So it just was
Life without cake is a life I don't want to live.
exact same and same. But when I had it, then I didn't know how to enjoy it because I felt so much guilt. Um,
Yeah.
and I think, I mean, I can go into so many different things that I've taken from this program. Um, but I think that was one of the best things to know, that I could
Mhm.
have things, eat things, lose weight. Sure, everybody wants to. It's the number one thing. But man, did I course correct my thinking from the course, and that's been the best part of everything.
I'm so happy to hear that. And it's hard not to feel guilt over eating cake when, even if you've like saved up, the
Mhm.
points and everything. And so theoretically, you shouldn't feel guilt because you like maybe worked for it. It's still hard not to feel that guilt when you know that it's taking up all of the points for your day.
Mhm.
And that's also just so unrealistic to expect that somebody will not eat the whole thing so that it perfectly matches the 23 point threshold and that they won't eat anything else the rest of, like that's ridiculous. How is that healthy? How is that encouraging health?
No, it didn't encourage health. And it also, my mental health was like, I was so nervous. I was so like scared to have the cake. And if I only had a little bit, or I'd scrape the icing off, like,
Mm.
what kind of life is that? Hard
So
no for
sad.
me. Yeah.
I remember you talking to me in the beginning too, saying how you felt like food had become your best friend and you would use it for all things. And you also simultaneously were like, man, I want to live for something else though. I want to be able to travel and have new relationships and things like that. Can you speak to that maybe tension you were feeling where you felt so wrapped up in food, but at the same time you wanted your life to be about something else?
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of what I've learned since doing Nourished and Free was that I use food as a filler. I was
Mm.
bored, I ate. I didn't have anything on the go, I ate. I had dinner with friends, I got apps, dinner, and dessert. I liked eating. It made me feel comfortable, especially during a time of like really unknown. It was my friend, and I was like, no, no, this isn't going to affect it big long term. And then I was like, this one cookie or these two chocolate bars, like that's not really going to have an effect. And then the number went up, and it was just so sad for
Hmm.
me, but also lonely. Every time I
Yeah.
ate the thing, I'd feel either guilt, I'd be mad at myself, I felt like a failure. So I beat myself up, and but it was the only thing that made me happy. So how weird is that, like juxtaposition between the two? I needed it, but it made me sad. I just did not have a good relationship, and I think it was what I needed at the time, I guess. But now where I am in terms of like my knowledge is I don't feel deprivation of anything. So
Hmm.
I don't feel as lonely. I fill my nights with something else. I'm like, are you really hungry, or is this just like you're bored? And I have that constant conversation with myself. And sometimes I say, nope, I really need that thing. I'm going to have it. And
Yeah.
other times I say, no, you're just bored, or you're going to go to bed in an hour. Do you want that? Not really. But I don't believe in the like, don't eat after such and such. I'm just saying, like, I like, it's just my brain goes there instinctively, like I'm sure most people's does, right? So
Hmm.
I think
Absolutely.
that has been interesting. And then I'm like, what else do I do? I don't have children. I have a beautiful cat.
She is beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we got that on the podcast. Um,
Shout out to Paige.
age. Uh, but all things considered, I think, when you're single and you want to travel and you want to do all these things, that's amazing. And I'm in a position that I can do those things. But eating was taking up all my money. It was taking up all my time. I couldn't and didn't like to travel because I didn't fit in the seats. Like all of
Mhm.
these things like were affecting it in a way in which I didn't understand how it was ingrained in me.
Mm.
So that's been the challenge. And then doing this and then having, I love my folks, they're fantastic, but my folks, my friends, my best friends, people I hang out with all the time saying, hey, do you got a quick fix? Ozempic, you want to do that? Like all
Ugh.
these different things. Yeah, like it's just like everyone wants that quick fix. And I feel
Mm.
like I have the golden ticket and they don't have it. And that is what this program is for me. I feel like things they're talking about and thinking about that is always at the front of their mind is no longer taking up that brain space. And that
Yeah.
is a gift that is worth everything.
That's so beautiful. You have the golden ticket. I love that. That's such a
Yeah,
good way to put it. What is it like for you to have that brain space back from the constant thoughts of food?
it's amazing. I can't tell you, like I have more space to do things I've wanted to try. I went to a workout class just because like a friend had a bring a friend kind of pass. I went just because I was like, what's the harm? And I'm doing like
Yeah.
ladder climbs and um I'm having friends over for dinner tonight and I'm not stressed about it because I have to order in or this. I'm just making a really
Yeah.
nice salad that I found on the internet that I was like, I think they're gonna love this. But
Mm.
I've also got like beer and wine, and I'm not freaking out about like that consumption. So it's just, it feels freeing, so freeing. And when everybody goes there, and it's, if you're a woman, and maybe I'm, but I feel like it's all we talk about sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
don't have much to contribute to it anymore. It's not that I'm not going to participate, but I think I'm just like, oh, well, if you want the cookie, eat the cookie, whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
What a novel
Yeah.
concept.
But people think like, oh, well, what is it that you have? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I've got all this. I've ate everything I've wanted to eat, and I've also lost weight, but I've done it in the right way that I'm never going to see those pounds again because I'm
Mm.
not feeling like I'm on a diet. And even calling your program a program makes me think of like diet culture, like the
Mm.
the word program makes it feel like I'm doing a thing when in reality it's an education and it's a
Ooh.
real gift and it's not anything I'm applying beyond. I've taught myself how to have a relationship with food and now I'm putting it to use. That's what it feels like.
I love that you brought that up. Maybe I should change it and not call it a program.
No, I think like
That's
people
a
call it
really
a
good
program,
point, though.
but you see what I'm saying? Like when people say
Totally.
program, they think it's a
Yeah.
thing I have to do and then it ends. And that does happen, but it's more of I learn so much.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's not
It's
like a hard
ongoing.
stop and then you never
No,
do anything related to it again.
exactly. And
Yeah.
when I have a big thing for me was binge eating. That was a big part of it. And I think once I kind of understood why I was doing that and then how to work through it, it was less of like now I don't, if I need a binge, really like if I'm there, I look at the modules, I understand like how to like work through it. I have a chat with myself. I don't beat myself up. And I know you've said this multiple times, both on the podcast and to us, your clients, but it's being kind to yourself and saying, if I want 3 pieces instead of 2 pieces of pizza, then that's what I need right now. Um, but oftentimes because I use my food to fill me up differently, I feel less inclined to eat the third piece of pizza because I'm like, are you
Yeah.
just are you just eating this because or that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
I love that. And that's the thing. There's so much nuance to it that I think gets missed when you're just kind of taking it at face value in terms of thinking about having no food rules and uninhibited eating is the nuance of, well, actually, when there is uninhibited eating and I've worked through my binge patterns and my emotions and the feelings that are wrapped up into my relationship with food,
Mhm.
then I start to have this like strange world of self control. And it's not self control because it's just fueling my body the way that it actually needed to be in the first place. And now I'm able to see that and understand that and follow through on
Exactly.
that. It's
Exactly.
Magical.
Magical is the right word. Like I even like the other day I had dinner and I was like, I'm not that hungry anymore. And I was like, you know what? I'm done now. Like I didn't like force it because of that, like, you know, always finish everything that's put in front of you and so on and so forth. So I think that's been lovely, just to kind of understand that piece of it too.
Yeah. So you mentioned how the word program was like not fitting for this and everything,
Mhm.
which makes me think of you have a history with doing these other things like Weight Watchers, and I'm
Sure.
sure you did some other stuff
Oh,
too, right?
name it, I've done it.
Okay, okay, yeah, just to get that out there. So, with that being said, I'm sure there was some sense of skepticism going
Mhm.
into a new quote unquote program, and doubt, and maybe even self doubt. I think if we're honest, a lot of times when we want to try something new, there is a heavy dose of self doubt, not necessarily in the system, but in our ability to follow through with it. I don't know
Mhm.
if you found that was true for you, but anyway, I'd love to know what kind of reservations and worries did you have before joining, and how did that change once you were actually inside?
It's a great question because I think the reservations I had was I can't fail anymore. What if this doesn't work? Uh, what happens when I mess up? Those were my hesitations. And then I start, and I will say, admittedly, the night before, I'm on the phone with my friend. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I started on a Tuesday. I remember each day as it led up to it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start on this day. My module's coming through. I knew. So the night before, I was like, well, I gotta have a big binge because I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
that's what this is teaching me not to do. So I get like my childhood favorite foods. I buy cookies. I eat a whole pint of ice cream. I went nuts. Like I was like, because I can't do these foods anymore.
Yeah.
And the first day comes, I get my module, I'm learning, I'm talking to the community. Everybody is so lovely. And I was like, okay, now what? Now what? Now what? And I'm like, I think the way it was paced for me really helped me understand that I was learning, taking time. I'd rewatch a module if I didn't understand something. So I was really like, okay, what do I do now? And it was a process to kind of get my head in it, but I knew that I was going to commit. One of the biggest things for me, and I know that you said, I think it was in the package when we started talking, but it was about cost benefit analysis. And I remember one of the things that you spoke about at some point, whether it was to me directly or in the program, of cost benefit analysis. And how much have I spent on Weight Watchers? How much have I spent on the food that I was binging on the night before? Easily $50, you know, maybe 100. I don't know. How many programs have I done and failed? How many gym memberships have I had? The list goes on and on and on. And when I looked at that and I was like, no, but if you take the 4 months to really learn, to listen, to teach yourself, to make the time for this, then all of that other stuff will fade away because you'll have the tools in your toolkit to be able to apply it and not have to spend the money here anymore.
Yeah.
And that for me was like the biggest takeaway because I said, okay, that's true. I understand. I don't want to keep doing this. I'm tired of it. And so I kind of paused all of that stuff and I invested in here, but I wanted to not just invest with currency, but invest here and here. And I think that was really, really important to me to show up. And I
Yeah.
think that was something I had committed to myself on that Tuesday when I started.
Yeah. So some people are very cynical, such as myself,
Mhm.
and would approach a cost benefit analysis like that and think, well, I've already spent that much and they all failed. So how do we know this isn't going to just be another thing that I fail and now I'm spending more or whatever, right? Because,
Sure.
working with a professional who's in your back pocket for 4 months can be an
Mhm.
investment. So, what was it for you that made you feel like this was different than the Weight Watchers or whatever?
Great question. I think that the thing that made it true to me was the podcasts, your
Ooh,
clients, the testimonials. I knew you had the education. I knew you had been through pieces of what I had been through. And I think authenticity for me is obviously incredibly important. I want to know that I can speak to the person in a way that's like, but you get it, right? Like this day was tough for, and I'm so happy I'm on the other side of it to get to be a client and say to people, this really works. It really works. If you apply it, if you show up. And there was someone like me 4 months ago saying the same thing. And I was like, well, if they're saying that, and like 100% of the people are saying that this program really changed the way they think, that could be it for me too. And I think that for me was a really important takeaway as a whole. And I think I came into it being like, okay, I want to lose weight. And I walked out of it saying, yeah, I lost some weight and it was awesome. But I also had Wendy's the other night, and I've had cookies, and I'm going to have that beer in my fridge tonight. And I'm not going to be obsessed with it. And I will show up for myself, and I will move my body because it needs it. And I have more time to make space to actually like go to the gym and be there because I want to be there, not because I'm like, I have to lose this weight and get on the scale the next morning, completely
Yeah.
naked at 6:30 a.m. Like there was a plan. It's so freeing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the clients and just the education of knowing that I was working with someone that understood and also had that education to teach me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that.
for sure.
So, you kind of mentioned how well, a big reason why this process worked for you is with the caveat of showing up and being all in with
Mhm.
your head, your heart, your finances, whatever.
Mhm.
What would your advice be for somebody who's just starting this process and has the 4 months ahead of them?
My advice would be really ensure that you show up. And I think showing up comes in multiple ways. You can say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do the module. I'm a very type A personality. I get a thing, I complete the thing. I said, I did the thing, like I'm very like, I have to prove that I did it. I think showing up though is not just watching a module, it's applying. It's saying, but why? And I've shared this with you, Michelle, before, but there was something in the early days of saying like allow yourself to journal, and I was like, how do I journal? What do I do? I need a plan because I'm so like I work a certain way in my brain. Journaling was so hard and foreign, and I think that took on a whole other form for me, and I still do it all the time, and it's fantastic. um, so committing and showing up for yourself comes in many many forms. I think that I would tell anybody to, yes, one, show up, but know that you don't have to have that night before you start kind of binge, because you're still going to get to have all the things you want, but you're going to have the freedom to choose them where and when. And you're going to find so quickly that the things that made you quote unquote happy about food are other things. There's so many other things connected to that. There's just so much you're going to learn about yourself. And I think that's exciting no matter where you are in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that.
Mhm.
It's like you get your life back.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I have it. It's wonderful. I tell everyone. I do. I think it's just like amazing. And it's I think about all the friends you go out with, and it's the only thing. Like I can't have it. It's our cheat day. Like, ugh,
I
I'm over it. And like it happens all of the time.
know.
And I love my mother, but moms are tough, right? So there's just like it's one of those things like she so badly wants the same things I want, and I want them too. And but I think I'm trying to teach her as I've learned, uh, don't beat yourself up. Have that if that's what you need, that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
I love it.
Mhm.
So, what would you say to somebody who's on the verge of enrolling, but they have that doubt, they have that fear of like, well, what if this is just another thing? What
Yeah.
if I fail once again? What would you say to somebody who's considering enrolling in this process and starting Nourished and Free?
Yeah, I think I would say trust yourself. If you're in the right headspace to go there, be good and apply. Lean on the community in a really loud way. They're there, they're your peers, and they are taking the same modules and they are there to connect with. know that you're going to have that kind of nutritionist in your back pocket. You can ask questions, that you don't have to be lost, but you do have to show up. And I think that's really, really important, because there's no quick fix to anything,
Yeah.
anything you do, right? So any program you join, there's never like a, it all comes down to what you put in your mouth and how you move your body, right? Those are facts. What if you don't get to have the brownie or the cookie or the, what kind of life is that? I think, but I am less likely to have an avoidance of like, I can't have it, I can't have it, I can't have it. And then when I do have it, I eat the whole bag. That all goes away. So I think if you're really on the verge of like, is this something for me? You will get so much free space in your mind. You will have a whole new perspective about food, and it won't be the only thing you think about all day, all night.
Yeah. You talked about the nutritionist in your back pocket piece. How was that for you to have that access? Because it's
I loved
different
it.
than Weight Watchers.
It's so different. And I think at first I was like, what questions do I ask? How do I know? And but that kind of comes from the different conversations. I know you're pretty hands-on both individually, but like there's group activities to kind of like ensure that we connect. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way, and so on and so forth. So I think I really liked it because I knew I had somebody to be like, is this okay? Should I have this or should
Yeah.
I not? And God love you. Every time you would write back, you'd be like, well, is that what you want? Well, don't remember it's, and I remember like very early, I was like, I lost X amount of weight. And you were like, that's amazing. But remember that it's not just about numbers. How do you feel? What have you done? Like what like
Yeah.
accomplishments have you had in food? And I was like, oh, like I showed up to be like, I lost weight. And you were like, great. But that's not all we're doing here. It's
Yeah.
so much more. And I think
Yeah.
many people will be at a place where they're like, I need to lose weight, which I was too, and I'm still in that place. It's going to be slow and steady and very smart how it comes off.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to happen the next day, but I'm showing up for myself, both in the kitchen, at the gym, and in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the losing weight piece is it's such a curious piece because we do have to consider how that came off in the first place. And that's why I like to not make that a focus because I never want the focus to be lose weight no matter what it takes because then we're going back into the Weight Watchers things. We're going back into the things
Oh,
that deteriorate our mental health and we're miserable. And
mhm,
so that's why when I do hear that from clients and they're like, yes, without a shadow of a doubt, that's what my body needed. I
mhm.
can celebrate that with you and with anybody else because I know that's your body responding to truly healthy and sustainable behaviors. And it's like, cool, that's exciting. Like your body appears to be adjusting in ways that it was supposed to. But it's like, regardless, it's amazing how much better you can feel despite what happens with your weight when you just focus on being healthy and you focus on
Exactly.
the behaviors that lead to a healthy weight. You know, like that's what this whole thing is centered around is like, hey, let's actually work on the roots instead of the side effect. Working
Yeah.
on the side effect doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's it, right? And I think we all come in with the side effect at the forefront of our mind. Everyone, everyone, that's what we're there for. I want to lose the weight, wait. Like a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there any other thoughts or things that you wanted to share that we haven't touched on yet?
I will say one other thing. If you are thinking about joining, Michelle will interview you as much as you're learning to apply to the program, which was one of my favorite things and was a huge selling factor as to why, because I knew she was invested and she was showing up for me. And she was like,
Hmm.
okay, let me ask you these other questions. I never had that experience. It's just, I was like, well, I want to give you my money and I want to be here. And she was like, but I have four more questions for you. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I don't say it as a negative. I say it as a positive because
Yeah.
I knew that you were invested in wanting to accomplish the goals I knew I needed to address, but I'd never
Mm.
been asked. And so I
Mm.
think allow yourself to go there, to be vulnerable, to say, I don't know how. You don't have all the answers. And maybe, Michelle has a lot of them when it comes to nutrition, but we're all learning together. And I think that was something that as you're getting asked those questions, as she's showing up for you, that's just a preview of what you'll get in this program.
Thanks for saying that. I do love to be sure that this program, or should I call it something else? But I do love to be sure that this process is
Yeah,
going to actually work for whoever's considering it. And that's why I like to be pretty thorough. I think it can throw people off, but I'm like, I don't care.
loved
I
it.
want this to work for
No,
you. So we're gonna
loved it.
figure out if it will or not before you even like
It
make the
was my favorite
decision.
part. I was like, I have her right here. This is what it's going to be like. And that's exactly what it was like. So it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I am rooting for you always, and I'm so just ecstatic to be on this side of it and see how much better you're feeling. And now you can go into being 40 in a couple months and be
Here we
excited
go.
about that
I'm
instead
going to
of,
buckle in. You should think
yeah.
I've already ordered the cake, people. So that's where I am.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much, though.
Thank you.